There is a new story on the Milwaukee Journal website from reporter Dan Bice. The headline, Representative Tom Tiffany erases abortion, gun rights, and other issues from his personal website. And Bice notes, and actually, let me back up a step before I tell you what's in the Dan Bice article today. I haven't done this for a little while. I want to make sure I do this. When I share things out of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, the New York Times, and elsewhere, it is never meant to be a substitute for actually subscribing and reading up on some of these stories yourself. I personally am a subscriber to news websites, and you should do the same thing as well. If some of these stories intrigue you and you want to go look for them, you should be supporting good journalism. There are other places, that don't have a paywall yet. They might have, for example, at Up North News, we don't have a paywall. We're never going to have a paywall. But we do have what's called a gate, and that gate invites you to share your email address so you can get a sample of our newsletter, and maybe you want to subscribe to it that way once you've taken a look at it. But, there's also other ways to support good journalism through subscriptions, and that includes the work that the amazing team at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel is doing. So back to the Dan Bice story, he begins by saying, when you've been in office, state and federal, as long as Congressman Tom Tiffany, it's impossible to erase your political past, but you can certainly try. And Bice points toward a website called The Wayback Machine, which preserves snapshots of websites. And it shows that Tiffany at tomtiffany.com had a webpage as of September 17th that listed lots of hot button issues and his positions on them, including abortion and gun safety and crime and immigration, and as he likes to always call it, communist China. But if you look at tomtiffany.com today, the issues page is gone. It's been replaced with something called solutions, with things like protect what makes Wisconsin great and lower costs for every Wisconsinite. And apparently the new solutions page, according to the Dan Bice story, makes no mention of guns. There is one mention of immigration. There's one mention of China. Nothing about abortion, nothing about the deficit. That last one makes complete sense because Tom Tiffany is as hypocritical as any other Republican in talking about the deficit. We can't afford that. We can't afford to support health care. We can't afford to support education. We're spending too much. We've got to keep the debt and deficit down, they love to say. Until they just voted, as they did, to add another $4 trillion to the national debt to pay for more than $4 trillion in tax cuts geared toward the very wealthy. So I'm not surprised that he's saying a little bit less about the debt and deficit. But Bice goes on saying the interesting note here is that Tiffany and his team made the switch in the days leading up to his September 23rd announcement that he is now running for Wisconsin governor next year. Wisconsin Democrats, of course, were quick to call out Tiffany. You had Phil Schulman, the spokesperson for the state Democratic Party, saying Tariff Tom is scrubbing his website of abortion and other issues because he knows he's going to have to deceive voters about his extreme record if he's going to win next November. Now, folks with the Tiffany team say there's nothing unusual about updating your website when you're running for, a new office, in this case, governor. But folks have also noticed that when it comes to, for example, abortion rights, that Tiffany is, in fact, some would say shifting his view on abortion. I do not say that. I don't believe he's shifted his views one little bit. He's simply trying to have it both ways. And we've talked about this shortly after he announced that he was running for governor and talking about, in a very, shall we say, generic way, that he supports current state law. And current state law is a 20-week limit on women's reproductive health rights. And I stand by that, and I will uphold that legislation, is what Tiffany told reporters on September 4th. He says, as the governor, I do not plan any changes. And that's very key. That's very well thought out. I do not plan any changes. In much the same way that Scott Walker had said, I'm not planning to do anything with new union busting laws. And of course, once he was reelected, like the very first bill that was sent to him by the legislature was some more union busting laws. And he could not sign that thing fast enough. And of course, when questioned, he was like, no, it wasn't one of my priorities, but it clearly was the legislature. They sent me this bill. What was I going to do? I support it. I'm going to sign. That's exactly where Tom Tiffany is. He has consistently been supportive of near or total abortion bans in Wisconsin. He's been endorsed by a couple of the most extreme groups out there that would remove women's reproductive bodily autonomy. And so don't think for a moment that if he were elected governor, and if the Assembly and Senate were to stay in Republican hands and were to send him a near total abortion ban in Wisconsin, that he wouldn't sign it. He would sign it at the drop of a hat. And so the fact that he does not advertise that, he does not trumpet it on his personal website the way that he used to, does not reflect some kind of evolution. This all is, again, a reminder that you cannot simply look at what any candidate or politician says in the moment unless they are explicit. If they explicitly say, I have changed my position on something, I've changed my way of thinking on this, that's one thing. But when you get what Tom Tiffany's given you is just kind of this, mealy mouthed, well, I support the way things are right now. Again, people will say a lot of things to get elected. And then once they get elected, you see who they really are, which is a lot of what's reflected in what they've already said and written.